Hey guys, and welcome back. In this video I wanted to talk about the approach and how I separate the various passes and elements that we have here to get the most control in compositing, and to also be able to efficiently set up the various render passes so that we can optimize it as much as possible without having to increase, let's say, the render settings to only solve a problem that is specific to particles and foam, versus applying all those settings to the entire environment. So when we separate these elements, we can solve the rendering issues or the noise issues and sampling per element, rather than having to apply these solutions to the entire environment and all the elements which may not necessarily need these settings. So as you can see here, this is the final composite. Obviously, when I have a more complex scene, or probably I should have done this, I would separate the environment into a separate pass, as well as the geo. So anything that is geo, I would separate it in a separate pass, which we'll do in this week. And then I would render geo first, and then the water without any geo, just the water itself with all its features, and then the foam matted with everything else. Okay, so in this environment I would set up a pass for this, for just the environment, where I have the water and the foam set to phantom so they don't cast any shadows, and then I would render the water by itself and use the environment as a matte, and then I would render the foam like this by itself and use everything else as a matte, including the water itself. And we're going to talk about this in details. But we have one thing that is actually embedded into the water that is part of the foam, and that is the bubble. If we look closer here, there is bubbles underneath this. You see there is particles underneath. There is black particles. There is darkening here, and that's coming from the foam. So the foam is used in this pass, and it's set to phantom, so it only casts shadows. But if we look closer, there is bubbles underneath this, and this pass is just the water. It does not have any foam. So how it works? So let's say this is the water level. Okay. So this is our water sim, and then we have points, particles on top, and this is the foam. Okay, and then we have underneath this the bubble. So the way I separate it is I render this pass, the foam, and use everything else as a matte, and that includes the water and the environment. Okay, so any geometry I would use as a matte. And then I will render the foam with everything else set to matte, and when I render the water, I would include the foam as phantom and also include the bubble as visible. So this pass includes part of the foam sim that we did, a part of the white water that we did. And that's why I keep those groups from the sim, so I can separate the bubbles and render them with the water pass, and then the spray and foam, but spray is not too much here, and spray and foam would be in a separate pass. And we're gonna set this up so we'll understand it better. Sorry, I'm writing with my mice here. So let's do this in Houdini and start setting up our scene. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.